Sergeant Barry Plesser, United States Army, Vietnam. I interviewed Barry Plesser the first time in Sunrise, Florida, February 21st, 2007, the same time I interviewed Lawrence Bromer, whom you saw just before this story. Second interview with these guys. They're still doing well in their late 70s, and you know, the Vietnam veterans of today are about the same age as the World War II veterans were when I started interviewing them 22 years ago. So, you know, in 20 years, who's going to tell their story? So it's very important for these veterans to come forth, and I'm continuing my trek this year to interview some more Vietnam vets. But God bless Barry Plesser. I love this guy. We were going to go fly in a Huey helicopter together. It hasn't happened yet, but I hope it will. But Barry, here's your story, man. Barry served with the infamous 7th Cavalry Regiment. That was George Custer's, if you know history, George Custer's regiment, Battle of Bighorn. That was his regiment. Part of the 1st Cavalry Division. He was a platoon sergeant, 1st Platoon, 2nd Battalion, Charlie Company. And Gary Owen. I like that, Gary Owen. And if you want to know the history of Gary Owen, it's on the internet, and it's in my first interview too. So, but anyways, I interviewed Barry the second time in Cocoa, Florida. It was July 5th, 2024, just a few months ago. And he opened up, shared a lot of things he didn't share in his first interview. So this is going to be another one of those great second interviews that I was able to do. So Barry is a decorated veteran of Vietnam, among other things, Bronze Star, the Presidential Unit Citation, Air Medal, and numerous other awards, but Combat Infantry Badge, just a great guy. So he's one of my heroes, obviously. And Barry, this is for you, man. I want to thank Mike and Sandra Potter again. They are the couple that brought me to Florida in July. Got to speak at Pastor Jay Frazier's church, who served in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. Interviewed him too. And Mike and Sandra, thank you again for opening up your lives to me and welcoming me to Florida. It was a great time. Hope we can do it again. So I just want to give another shout out to you guys. I appreciate you so much, and thank you so much for making that opportunity possible. So, okay, Barry, here it is, man. Thank you for subscribing to this channel, folks, for sharing these videos, very important. Thank you for supporting Voices of History Radio, which is on the air right now, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with all these stories. And hope some of you can tune into that. I want to get it into the hands of our kids, living history in the palm of their hands. I want to get it to our truck drivers, especially like those that commute, stay-at-home moms and dads, and everybody else in between. I listen to it all the time. It's a great supplement, as it were, to this great YouTube channel. So I want to let you know, I let you know last time, I've created a Vietnam playlist. Now, the reason I say that is because you don't have to look all over the internet or even on my channel for these stories. If you like the Vietnam stories, I'm putting them all together. Vietnam War Stories, it's called, the playlist. So yeah, I'm going to put it in the video description from my videos from now on. It's also on my channel. Just go to Voices of History, click on the little channel thumbnail, take you to the page that says playlists, and you click on that and find the Vietnam War Stories. And you can listen for days and weeks if you want to listen to all of them. So, and I've got many more that I haven't even showed everybody. I've got a whole lot more in my archives. Hopefully we can get those on the air sometime this year. So, okay, let's honor Barry Plesser now, folks. Barry, this is for you, man. Thank you, Mike and Sandra, again for sponsoring this story. And I just present to you now Sergeant Barry Plesser, and I will see you on my next broadcast. God bless you. hear me okay?
Hear you fine.
Okay, brother, we're just going to talk, man. First of all, it's great to see you.
Nice seeing you too again, Larry.
Tell me, do you remember when I interviewed you, what year it was?
2007.
February.
February
21st. And that's when I interviewed Lawrence Bromer. He was the 3rd 25th Division Sergeant. And I interviewed him again. And as I have occasion, I'm interviewing some of you guys the second time. So it was a tough trip here yesterday, 12 hours traveling, and it was a tough. And I said to my wife, I said, I'm getting too old for this. But I've interviewed over 1,000 veterans in 21 years.
It's fantastic. What you're doing, Larry, is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'll tell you, when I went to my first reunion in 2005, I said, we need somebody to get these stories down. My God, the guys passing away, the World War II veterans and the Korean guys. Somebody's got to get these stories because it's a wealth of history, you know. It really was.
Exactly. So, Sergeant Barry Plesser, so good to have you here again. I'm probably going to ask you some of the same things, but we're going to maybe hear it a little differently. But so, how are things gone the last 17 years? Are you still thinking about Vietnam? Is it still part of your life?
Oh yeah. The wounds from that war never really go away for anybody that was there. I mean. And the good that came out of all of it too, you try to embrace that and find it when you can. And that series that Ken Burns made with the Vietnam War, the 10-part series, I had to watch it 3 or 4 times to really get what I was involved in, because as a 21-year-old kid, I didn't know what the hell I was involved in, and wasn't everybody doing what we were doing. So we got a good heads up on that right away.
Tell me again, just when did you graduate high school?
I graduated high school June of '65.
So you're 17, 18 years old.
18 years old.
And in Vietnam, it really hardly even started, right? You didn't know about Vietnam, or?
It was kind of like, you know, in the background, and it came into full swing about a year or so afterwards. And I went to college, Suffolk Community College on Long Island, and that December kind of dropped out, living at home with Mom, not doing anything. And my friend came over and said he just volunteered for the draft, my friend George. And we went down to the draft board, and I said, well, it sounds like I better do something with my life here, because I'm not doing anything but vegetating. And I was at home with Mom and everything, and I said, I better do something with my life. Well, we went down to draft board, and they said, oh, we'd love to have you. As a perk, we'll let you go when you want to go, as soon as you want to go, and you'll take the place of somebody who, you know, somebody else. So my friend George and I spoke up and said, I think we'd like to go in October. This was like in April of 1966. So, you know, that gave us plenty of time to cause a lot of trouble and get in a lot of trouble, but we just barely made it through with closing the bars and all the girls and taking them out of the dorms till 4 in the morning, and you know, going down to Benny's Happy Landing and spending just mayhem. And then all of a sudden, October 27th came along, 1966, and George, we got to be down the draft board tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock, and we're going. And the reality set in, and that was when we were going. And we went down, and they put us on a bus. We went to Fort Hamilton, Brooklyn, took a physical, and the guy said, "You two guys go over there," and everybody else was more or less going home. They were, you know, they weren't in yet, but. And we went over with some other guys, and we were shipped over to Whitehall Street, took a step forward, and you're in the Army now, you know, and got on a rickety train to in Penn Station. The biggest guy was in charge of the orders, and we got on this train, and they took us to Washington, D.C., got off the train, and they put us on sleeperettes. Every man had his own room, and we thought, oh my God, this Army life's going to be wonderful, you know. And that train took us right into deciding into Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Welcome to the United States Army. And what an education that was when Smokey the Bear came out of the woods and explained that our family and everybody else was gone. They're dead to you, and I'm your mother. Okay, so it's all different now from what I understand, but they that was quite an impression it made some guys. But I had a little bit of up on that because I was an Air Force brat for many years, and I knew you had to try to take things not too serious, you know.
Yeah.
And
So where was your home at that time?
I lived on Patchogue, Long Island, New York.
Okay.
And
so was it a culture shock going into the military?
a little bit, but not that bad for me because it gave me a lot more structure than I was having. I was getting in, I could have really gotten in a lot of trouble if I didn't go in the military. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons I went in, and you know we had this idea that you know we were serving our country, so and we're used to Audie Murphy and John Wayne and all that stuff, so we thought we were doing the right thing, and we at the time we were, and to this day I'd do it again. But I mean we had a lot to lose, and we didn't realize that we were invulnerable. So.
Yeah, invincible.
Invincible, and then the bullets would bounce off us. You know.
So you went in as you said you volunteered for the draft.
Yes.
How do you volunteer for the draft?
You go into the draft board and say, "I'd like to go now."
Oh, but you would have got drafted anyways, probably.
Oh, probably. Yeah, we were 1A, and that was like, let's go now when we're ready to go, and not when. You know, when we get a notice in the mail, but we still got the notice in the mail. You know?
What kind of MOS did they give you? What'd you go in as? 11 Bravo?
Well, no, yeah. Well, we went in and during after basic training, you usually get an assignment where you're going to go. So we were assigned to the advanced infantry training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Before we went over there in basic training, the guys were going to go to OCS, they were going to go to helicopter flights, and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of different military occupational skills. And I knew I really didn't want to be in the infantry. So the field first sergeant came up with a thing, we're looking for volunteers for an airborne surveillance sensor. I said, and he says, I think it's a door gunner in a helicopter. Now, there wasn't one hand go up, you know. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. And so I thought about it, and I went to the postal library, and I looked up the MOS, and it was an observer, 26E2. It was an observer on a Mohawk. Now, looking back, I found out that the Mohawks had engines on them. They were built by Grumman, and the Pratt & Whitney engines that they had on those aircraft were called Widowmakers for obvious reasons. And who knows, I might have, so... who knows where I might have wound up. So I volunteered for that, went down, took a physical, failed the physical, came back. The doctor said, look, come on back and take this test again. It's a red lens test. You had a tear or something in your throat. I said, okay. So I told the military personnel guy, he said, all right, go back and take it. I took the test, passed, came back. He said, the class is closed, too late. I said, can you tell me where I might be staying after basic training? He said, oh yeah, right here at Fort Jackson. And by the way, anybody in advanced infantry training that you're in goes directly to Vietnam. At that time, I said, oops, maybe I ought to rethink this. So I applied for, and I had a lot of problems at home, between mom and my brother and sister, and things were not that good. So I said, well, it's a good excuse to get out. So I applied for a hardship discharge, and I was a holdover from advanced infantry training. My whole class went right to Vietnam, and I was a holdover for a few weeks, and I went home after we had leave, and then I came back and I was a holdover, and I told my friend at home about it, and his parents had some problems, and he applied for it, the guy that I went in with. So it came down to both of us applying for hardship discharges, And guess who wrote better letters? His parents. And there I was. I called into the captain's office. Where would you like to leave from? My captain and I was working in supply as a PFC. I got promoted to PFC. And he said, where would you like to leave from? Fort Dix or Oakland, California? I said, Oakland, California. And I had orders, went home for a few days, and that was it. And Mom dropped me off at Kennedy Airport and climbed, and my knees were shaking when I went up the, you had to climb up the gangplank on the plane to load, and I could hardly climb up the stairs. I go, oh my God, what did I get myself into here? So the flight across, and when we flew over the Golden Gate, I remember the last time I went under the Golden Gate with my father going to Hawaii when he was in the Air Force, and we went to Hawaii for 4 years. And I said, I'll be going over the Golden Gate again. So we went to Oakland, California, the Oakland Overseas Replacement Depot, and there were with about 5,000 guys. It was thousands of guys there at this place, and it was the height of building up for Vietnam. And we were all flying over in the Flying Tiger line, or similar to, we flew into Philippines. And what it was, you were marking time because you had to wait your turn. And we're in these formations and stuff every day, and I didn't hear where the next formation was, so I walk up to a guy and tug on his arm. And he turns around and looks at me. I go, Stan Smiley, what are you doing here? He said, you stupid bastard, I'm going to Vietnam just like you are. I said, oh my God. Stan, he was on the golf team with me in New York State, the high school golf team. He was the #1 man. I was a junior, a sophomore. And we went on to win the New York State High School Golf Championship that year. And it probably kept me in school to be able to at least get my high school diploma. So I'm saying, and he said, and that's the last time I saw Stan until I came home from Vietnam and went back to caddying again. But that's one of the coincidences. And so we had picking up cigarette butts and everything, and then I said, well, anybody would get out of all these details? You had to. There was a lot of make work stuff. So they took us back to. They made an announcement. Anybody want to give blood? I said, geez, I may get this back. I said, sure, I'll give blood. So they load us on an Army bus, and we're going over to Oakland, California, across the bridge. To San Francisco from Oakland. And the guy says, we get back on the bus after we get blood, and he says, I want to show you what you're going to Vietnam for, as we ride through Haight-Ashbury. We were lucky to get out of there with our lives in a green Army bus that was being pummeled with everything they could throw at us and screaming and everything. He said, the bus driver said he was sorry he did that because, I thought we were going to get mobbed over there. And we get back, and then I'm in a bunk. There were bunk beds that were 5 high, and I was stacked on there alphabetically with Lagaki, Peterson, and Plesser. So us three alphabetically wound up being in the same platoon when we arrived in Vietnam, and it was quite a journey to Vietnam.
So when you got to Vietnam, what did you experience as far as your first impression? What happened when you got there?
Well, just getting off the airplane. I mean, we flew into the Philippines, and while I'm sitting on the bench waiting for my flight into Vietnam with Japan Airlines, a 727, into Pleiku, Vietnam, I'm sitting there, I look up, and Ray Labina, what are you doing here? I said, you stupid bastard, I'm going to Vietnam too. Well, we played football together on the same high school football team. He was from Sable, Long Island, where I was from. Same with Stan. Anyway, that's just going to Vietnam in what were the odds or something like that. Yeah. So I said, geez, I hope this is a sign of things to come.
So, but what is, when you got there, you got assigned to a unit, and you ended up flying helicopters, right?
No. I wound up in in the 90th Overseas Replacement Battalion. When we landed, the door opened, and I like being the first out, so the door opens and that blast hits you, the heat, and then the smell, and you look down the gangplank, and there's 120 guys in khakis going the other way, and you now have 1 year to go. And you realize that, and you go, oh my God. And beyond them are guys with steel pots and grenades, weapons, bandoliers, and you go, there's a real war going on over here. So that was a realization that, oh my God. And then we went to the 90th replacement, and we're walking around, and we're going to get assigned to a unit. Not much training. I don't think we did any training there. And they're going to send us disperse us to the units as replacements, right? The NFG guys. We were the new NFG guys, right? Yeah, everybody knows what the NFG meant. So now we're those guys, and the guy goes, you three guys, alphabetical, right? 1st Cavalry Division. Yeah. Oh my God, everybody goes, ooh. I said, what is that for? They said, you never heard of the Cavalry? And this was a year and a half after the Idrang Valley thing. And I could never understand why the Cavalry, what was wrong with the Cavalry? So then we got a little sheet they gave us when we got to the 1st Cavalry Division about the history of the 1st Cavalry. And the 7th Cavalry, we were in General Custer's old outfit. And so in that outfit was a guy named Hal Moore, who was the colonel in the Idrang Valley movie with Joe Galloway, which I never knew a thing about. I'm oblivious, Isn't everybody doing this, So we wind up in the 7th Cavalry and C Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry, 1st Cavalry Division, Air Mobile. Well, what the hell is Air Mobile? Who knew what that was? So we arrive at the 1st Cavalry, and the first place we go is out on the perimeter of On K, that night to pull security guard, and then we got a taste of what was to come for a year, pulling guard and all that good stuff. So that was the first impressions of Vietnam, and the year to go was kind of depressing.
So what was your job in the 1st Cav, 7th Cavalry?
Well, we went into, the three of us wound up in the 7th Cav, which was doing an experiment. We were doing Operation Bird, BYRD. It was in about a year of one battalion with supporting units taking care of a whole province. It was an experiment, and that's what we did. We had 4 companies, 3 companies. Well, one company was at an LZ, the second company was at an LZ, third company was at LZ, pulling security and running patrols and stuff out of those LZs. And one company was out on operation with S2, those people with all the intelligence. The intelligence they put us in some situations. They were supposed to investigate this stuff and have it all set up for us, but it was never what it was supposed to be, ever. So anyway, that's what our job was in there, to secure this province from the BC and the North Vietnam. And we had mountains, coastal plain, and the beach. We were on a place called LZ Betty, which was on the coast with an airstrip, and we pulled security there. And out of that LZ, we would run what were called mini calves, where one platoon would come off the line, go in a tent with just fighting gear, and we'd play cards and all this stuff until the bubble choppers, the 47s, and they were the 1st of the 9th, which was the scout platoon. They would go out and hunt up something that they got information or something there, and if they found something, they would insert us. We would be there with 5 helicopters, ready to roll, and just hanging out. And if they found something, we'd go. If they didn't, but 9 times out of 10 they found something. So they load us up, and away we go, and insert us. And then if we found something big, they would take the rest of the company. and the rest of the battalion, whatever it took to insert. And the only trouble was they kept inserting. Months later, they wound up inserting people into a landing zone that was ambushed, and they kept inserting people into the same landing zone. I don't know what that was. Finally, they decided to go outside the landing zone and come in. But we had night hunter for all the guys in the rear. We go up at night. The cooks, the bottle washers, everybody. We go up at night and they use flares and they do high, low, and they try to find people in the open, out in the trails and stuff in the province. Mm-hmm. So it was. We did that for 8 months. 8 months. How we'd do ambushes. We'd go out from the different LZs up in the mountain and on the coastal plain. It was LZ Jane, LZ Betty, LZ Bartlett up in the mountains, and we'd go out of there, walk out for 10K or 10 clicks, and set up ambushes on trails and stuff, and try to catch Charlie out there.
So you were around combat, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And did you lose friends that you knew, buddies?
The first 8 months, we lost a couple of guys. Not really. We never had some major. The biggest thing that happened, I was on R&R after being there for 6 months, mm-hmm. and they had that ambush I told you about, where they set up, where they kept inserting our people into the same landing zone, mm-hmm. and after that, then we like in December of '67. We moved December, January to get ready for Tet and all that. We moved up to a place called Bangsa. And we were there a month at LZ English, and we did operations out of there and stuff right around Tet, the Tet offensive of 1967, 68.
But your official title again was?
Number of them.
But you were an infantryman too, right? I mean,
I was the infantry guy, but in there you start out as I started out as a machine gunner. Mm-hmm. Then I became a rifleman.
On a helicopter machine gunner?
No. In the squad, mm-hmm. I was in the infantry platoon. Mm-hmm. You had in the platoon you had 2 machine guns. You had M79 grenade launchers, and you had riflemen, and you had team leader, 2 team leaders in the squad. And we were always short men. We didn't have enough men, no matter what. It was funny how many people were over there, but the infantry was always short people that were out pounding the bush.
Yeah.
Plenty of people in the rear, you know.
But when you talk to me about stick time, you were kidding around about helicopters, flying a helicopter?
What?
Did you ever...
Stick time?
Yeah.
No. After the service, mm-hmm. I always wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah, right.
So I decided to go for an airline pilot,
right.
and I used my GI benefits. And then life changes, and my wife and everything, we had to negate that and go for something more stable, so I became a police officer. It just so happens the police department that I went on had helicopters, and they were the first turbine helicopter department in the country, and there was a blurb that came out, anybody with a pilot's license. Well, I had a private pilot's license with a few hundred hours, a couple hundred hours maybe. Mm-hmm. And took me on a tour of the helicopter and showed me what the policeman does. And I said, this is how I want to be a policeman. I don't want to be a detective. I want to be a pilot. And now I'm going to be able to live the dream of being the airline pilot vicariously by being a pilot with the police department. And guess what? Luck of the draw. I was good. There was no doubt about it. But I was in competition with a bunch of other guys. The guy, the president of the flying club, the guys that had their commercial license. They were flying for the National Guard, this, that, and the other thing. And I just hit the right. And it took a year and a half for me to get enough hours to be safe, mm-hmm. to be flying. I flew with other pilots and stuff, but they more or less trained me. Yeah. I got my initial ratings, and it cost me my veterans benefits. Mm. So I became a pilot, a commercial helicopter pilot for the Suffolk County Police Department. And
How many years did you do that?
9 years I became. And then I had something happen that was I had a psychiatric, I was put in this anxiety situation with the same sergeant brought me there, and it was an anxiety situation came up, and I had a flashback, and I went into, what I had was post-traumatic stress, delayed post-traumatic stress came out. Didn't know this at the time, and they deemed it bipolar. You were bipolar. I said, what's that? And I said, well, you're not, it wasn't bipolar then, it was called manic depressive.
Right.
So that's what happened to me. I had this throwback, and then I lost, and I couldn't, due to the medications they put me on, I couldn't fly anymore. They don't want my medical for my commercial helicopter pilot. So where do you want to go? I could have went anywhere in the police. I had done the job really good, and a little bit more than was necessary. And they said, what do you want? You can't be a pilot anymore. I said, well, I'd like to go in the boats. So I became a boat captain for the Suffolk County Police Department for the next 10 years. But I was steadily getting worse because they diagnosed me wrong, and they're medicating and treating me differently.
Where's Suffolk County at?
Eastern Long Island.
Okay, right. I have a thought about that before we're done today, but I'll come back to it. So back in Vietnam, after hearing that, I kind of wonder why you wouldn't have become a warrant officer in Vietnam. It just seemed like a good fit.
Well, to tell you the truth, I knew what that involved.
Yeah.
I was on the ground. I'm glad I was an infantryman. When I saw the helicopters come in weather and rounds going through the ship, I'm watching rounds as they come in. And I said, I am glad I'm hugging the ground here. And these guys are floating up there on a rotating wing. And they're bringing us bullets. Most of all, they're bringing us, taking out the wounded, bringing us food, bullets, water. Everything was supplied by the helicopter guys. Now, I really thought about it, and then even thought about becoming a LRP, a long-range patrol guy. But I knew I had rolled the dice, and I'm going home, and I'm going to be an airline pilot or something, because I'm reading about the benefits from being a veteran, and I want to apply them to be an airline pilot, and with the stewardesses and all the things that come with it. So that was my dream, and vicariously, I became with the police department. I kind of threw that dream away, but then this opportunity presented itself, and I went after it with all due dispatch. I wanted, and I was good. I had to develop myself a feeling for it. Just flying the helicopter, learning to hover and stuff was a little dicey. But I mean, I was motivated, and I did what I had to do that, and I was living the dream. I mean, I used to pinch myself flying into New York City with premature babies and stuff in the back of my helicopter. And I was the medevac for Vietnam. And lo and behold, when I got there, I said, you know, if I go in the National Guard, because we had a guy there that was in the National Guard, and I said, I'm going to try and become a helicopter pilot for the National Guard. And what great training to help me train. And what a great, to go to Fort Rucker for 9 months. They had to give me time off from the police department, pay me, plus I could go there and do flight school for 9 months. I had enough vacation saved, all kinds of stuff. And I applied. I wrote up a interdepartmental correspondence, and the guy said, and I'm waiting for a response. It never came. I'd like to advance my expertise as a pilot for the Suffolk County Police Department by going to Fort Rucker, Alabama, and I qualified. I had I passed the flight physical, passed all the tests, and the National Guard said, come on. That was the 42nd Aviation Battalion with the National Guard, New York State National Guard. And the answer came down in a whisper behind my back of squat. You know, you're a pilot, enjoy that, and because they really didn't. Nowadays, it's a different story. They embrace the guys that are in the National Guard. So.
So back in Vietnam, probably the toughest situation you encountered over there, does that anything come to mind when I ask you that, or the toughest battle or incident? What was the hardest part?
The biggest thing was July 31st, 1967. Right after I got there, I had an incident. I was a machine gunner. I was a new guy, an FG, and that minicab I talked about, we were inserted in some really thick stuff along the coast, and I was in second team behind, and was just one platoon, a platoon-sized operator, and we're going up some really thick stuff, and we're going straight up this way, and directly to my left, there was firing, Now, as you get there, you know the difference between an M16, an AK-47, Maus, whatever. You could distinguish the sound, okay? I didn't know the sound. So there's firing, and I dropped down, and my job was to lay a fire on, So I laid down almost 100 rounds, I guess, and the sergeant that was there, Sergeant Bolson, says, "Ceasefire," and we stand up, and we walk forward, and then we make a U-turn, right? I go, "Oh my God." And a point man comes over to me and says, "Barry, you opened up on the whole front of the column." I said, "I thought it was Charlie off to the right next to us there. We were just single file. There was nobody over there." He said, "I was there. It was me and the front of the column." I said, "Oh my God, is anybody hurt?" And there was my buddy Ray laying there with the stare and a bullet hole in his cheek. And I said, "I hope he's all right." He said, "He's gone." And that burned a hole in my soul for many, many years. And I had to live with that because they gave me an out. They said, "Oh, it was the Viet Cong that got him, and it wasn't you," and all this from the battalion commander and everybody that talked to me afterwards. They said, "No, it wasn't not your fault." Well, it was my fault, and I opened fire, and many years later, I called his family, to try to make it right, so they knew what happened to Ray, and I talked to his older brother, for 4 hours, and gave him the whole story of what I did, where I was, and all this stuff. And after suffering many years of, blaming myself for what I did, and he says to me, "Barry, sounds like a friendly fire incident to me, and we forgive you." I cannot tell you, that was one of the most significant moments of my life. It felt like somebody it just let the air out and everything, because I couldn't forgive myself for what I did, and they did, It really helped me. And I was able to get a hold of some things, but it was still many years of therapy and all kinds of stuff I went through. In the beginning, because I had 25 years of therapy before I found out it was post-traumatic stress, And lost a lot over those years, and it happened. I'm not alone. There were so many other guys that this happened to, and there's guys languishing in jail cells, and I spent about 5.5 years in lock wards in mental hospitals, and 13 months straight in 3 different hospitals, and I escaped twice from mental hospitals. I was in turmoil. I thought I was doing the right thing, and I was delusional and psychotic, and it was mostly because of the meds. And I had court-ordered meds. The doctor said, "Well, you don't know what's best for you. We do." And they took me in before the judge, and the judge said, they think you got to take these meds, and you're bipolar. When I was sitting in a jail cell for trying to go home to my family, being delusional and psychotic, on Easter Sunday in 2005, they threw me in jail, and the usual routine, and this wasn't the first time. usual routine, they'd put me in jail and then send me to the mental hospital. And there they would make sure I took my medicine. But the medicines, it was treating apples, and I had oranges. I don't know the best way to say it, but I kept feeling that I really didn't need those medications and stuff, because we tend to mask the problem rather than treat the problem. I felt I was treating the problem. I was doing what I was supposed to do, but it wasn't. And so when I finally I went to jail again, and the psychiatrist at the jail, when I read about post-traumatic stress in the jail cell, in the newspaper on Memorial Day, 2005, I go, oh my God. I talked to the psychiatrist in the jail, who happened to be a VA doctor, psychiatrist, for 7 years before that. And he made the first diagnosis, along with being manic depressive or bipolar, because he didn't want to, but I'm not really, it could fit anybody, manic depressive and all that. We all have our ups and downs and stuff. But I was acting out because of the meds too, the medications I was on. It was it was part of my life, but all in all, I'm a happy man now. The VA even cut off doing therapy. They cut it off now. You can't do maintenance therapy with the with psychologists or So if you have a problem, you got to call them. So we had a lot of success with the group therapy, and that's where I knew to call the family. And the group therapy, one guy called his friend's family to tell him how he died and everything. So I got that idea, and I did that, and way back, and it helped me. It helped me a lot. And I always said the group therapy was great, and of course the doctor said it's individual therapy that's better.
So you were in Vietnam 66, 67.
Yes, sir.
So
May 24th through May 25th of 67, 65.
Do you remember your last day in Vietnam?
Oh, God, yeah.
Tell me about it again.
It started out, well, it was a couple of days. It started out at Camp Evans up in I Corps. And as you're clearing you got to clear everything, supply this and in those days, they were up in the hills shooting 122 millimeter rockets into Camp Evans, and you're walking around clearing posts, and here comes these incoming rounds, and you're trying to get into a anthole to get away because to die now is like, this is not how it's supposed to be. So anyway, I make it through, and I clear post. I get on it was a Caribou at Camp Evans, a Caribou, and it took me to On K, where I had to clear there, and I got everything, my stuff that was supposedly there, that had been rifled through, all our stuff that we left a year earlier, and stuff that I went and got. I got some stuff, and it was still there. That was still there, my tape deck and those things I had. And I had to carry all this stuff back and go to Cameron Bay. And there was this, and I took pictures of all the aircraft that were going home. And we took off from Cameron Bay. And I'm there with Dick. Now, Ray is gone. Mm-hmm. He died there July 31st, and Dick is alive, and Dick got shot through the ear.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're in the 707, and we get back and we land. Everything was kind of quiet until the wheels touched the tarmac at Seattle, Tacoma. That airplane erupted, and the stewardesses were right there with us enjoying all the joy of being back in the world. And I'll never forget that day as long as I live. And then we go to over to Fort what was it? Up there in Seattle, and they re-outfitted us in dress greens, and we went to Seattle, Tacoma to go home. And Dick and I are together. We went over together, came back together, and we've been friends since. Good friends and all the guys in the platoon. I wound up being a team leader, squad leader, platoon sergeant. That's the way it was. So PFC, and 7 months later, you're in charge of a line infantry platoon with 40 some odd guys in it, and you're the boss with a 23-year-old lieutenant, and all of us that are still alive now we still meet every couple of year or two, and we stay in contact for all the holidays. How are you? We made it, and and the lies, stories, and embellishments get more and more vivid as it goes along. But it's a camaraderie that, if you watch Band of Brothers, there it is. These guys, we all. It was us. It was us against staying alive and getting home. And that's basically what it was at that time.
Well, how was your homecoming as far as any protesting and?
My brother was the first one to meet me off the plane. My mother was standing there. Gave a big hug, and they had a sign on the garage, "Welcome home, son." And that was the homecoming. And then there was some friends that wanted to throw a nice homecoming thing that we had. I was there trying to explain how we were destroying all these people in Vietnam, and that was a little tough because there was a lot of dissension, a lot of things that where you couldn't believe. You thought you were doing this right thing for everybody, and the next thing you know, you're explaining yourself, and people are wanting to know why you killed these people, and the Callies thing and all this stuff. So my uniform went in the closet and stayed there for many years. And I had people say, "I didn't even know you were in the Army," So all of a sudden, when I was put in an anxiety situation, it all came out because I felt I was a murderer, and that's what it was, and everybody's different, believe me. Some people can see things and have things happen to them, and it's the way it is. They can weather right through it, but some people, it affects everybody different. That's the key.
Yeah.
And to talk about it, it gets easier to talk about it and embrace what you did. And you don't embrace it, but you deal with it. And that's the best thing I can say. Talk about it. All the guys that talk about it with people you trust. To keep it close to the vest. And a lot of guys didn't do that. And
I've had a lot of the Vietnam veterans say what you just said, that it's like it was a burden lifted off their shoulders. It's a relief. It's therapeutic. They feel better about it, and that's kind of how I am. I got to talk it out, man. So.
That's it. It was always something that you had to deal with it yourself, and how you felt about it, and other people gave you you felt very vulnerable, and they were able to get, and especially being a policeman and all this stuff. I was a murderer. I was going to go to jail, and this is delusional thinking. With the meds they started me on, I had Thorazine, Depakote, lithium, get your brain levels right, and all this stuff, and really all I needed was therapy with the guys and deal with the problem, instead of masking it. And to this day, I owe a lot to my brother. My brother was right there for me. When I was forced into retirement, I've been retired 34 years from the police department. I told, keep the check. I feel guilty taking the job. I was only on 20, and now I'm collecting a check for 34 years. Are you kidding? And they said, well, if you don't want the check, we'll take the check. And I said, no. So my brother, My brother just says, he, he only did what any brother would do, he didn't particularly like it, it's not a pleasant thing to do, but he took care of, when I was sick and everything, he took care of my finances and stuff. I mean, he was a brother, a real brother. And we talk about things, maybe I wasn't as good a brother as he was a brother, but, that's a whole family tit for tat type of thing, So, but he's a great guy, and I love him dearly. And my sister just passed away. We were all they went to an orphanage, and I went to a foster home when I was a senior in high school, and they were in high school and junior high school, and then we came out and came out of the foster home and stuff. I went to college and went back to Mom, and Mom got her stuff together, but she had a terrible alcohol problem, and it all turned out pretty good for us, and we just lost my sister. We had a celebration of life for her before she passed away, and that was her idea.
So, did you have faith in God during Vietnam? Was he part of your life over there?
There's a saying that some of the incidences that happened over there outside of Quezon with throwing grenades down a hole where 1,000 or 2,000 pound bomb was and not going off, and we talk about that at the reunions. We might have been vaporized right there if that bomb went off. And if you don't get close to God, and there's a saying, there are no atheists in foxholes, and if you go through the things we went through and say that there wasn't somebody carrying you, footprints is one of my favorites verses and prayers, and it hangs over my bed on a cross, that when you only see one set of footprints in the sand, and you said you would carry me, Lord, where were you? Well, it was then, my son, that I carried you. And boy, I tell you, even car accidents I had afterwards and stuff, he was carrying me. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. And if you don't become a believer after being in war, that somebody is in war. And what does everybody say listen to them, when the chips are down and they think this is it? Oh, God. Who do they cry out for most of all? God. And some of the things I said in the previous interviews and stuff, they have 17 years. It's here. It's all here again. We lose faith in God. We lose faith in our country. That's what we were founded on. Freedom of religion and this and that. And you're going to have anti-Semitic things and this and that. Well, where are we going with this? I just feel that this country was founded under the Bible. I don't know what anybody believes or not, but and what was the guide that kept us in law and order, and what was right and wrong was the Ten Commandments. We live by that. And they changed the Ten Commandments from thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not kill, to thou shalt not murder, right? So there's a big difference there between those two. So I think that we have to find faith. Faith will carry us through, and faith carried me through some deep, dark places in those 10 hospitalizations I had in the lock wards, and I'll challenge anybody to go there and not have faith, and then come through it and still be alive. I mean, really, you're in some places, and it's your own faith. You're carrying a Bible around and not really being able to read the Bible, but you knew you had faith there, that there was somebody with you when there wasn't, and God was always there. And as a kid, we always said the prayer and the Lord's Prayer and all these things. And I even went to Catholic church. I wasn't Catholic, but I went to Catholic church on Palm Sunday. And I'm sitting in the pew, and they passed out the palms, and I was about 15 or 14, and I'm with my friend George, and I said, what do I do with these palms? He says, you eat them. I go, oh. So I'm chewing on a palm, and the head start turning, and he's laughing like crazy at me. So, you try to find faith wherever you can. I was ready to kill my friend, even though it's against the 10 Commandments.
So how do you feel, 4 months from today is the November election, how do you feel about the state of our country right now? I mean, you're a veteran, you served, you've been in law enforcement. Looking around today, how do you feel about this country?
Here's what I think is a problem. You cannot fix stupid. How do you fix stupid? And this is not a pun on anybody. Look at our education system. Look at the things we had. We said a prayer. We said the Pledge of Allegiance. We did these things. They kind of resonated. Okay. Now people don't know history. They don't know. They have no idea what history is. Okay. The Greeks, the Romans, all these opulent societies, and what happens? What happens to them? We're getting away from law and order. I was so proud of my law enforcement career, even though there was some hitches in the giddy up, because I was probably the only Suffolk County policeman to ever arrest himself. Talk about being paranoid, with handcuffs, the whole thing, and you should have seen what furor that caused in the department. So anyway, law enforcement now, we went by two things. It was called reasonable grounds to believe a crime has been committed, and if you have reasonable grounds to believe that happened, you may effect an arrest with whatever force is necessary. I went by that. And it also was said in the same breath, reasonable grounds to believe deadly physical force or serious physical injury is about to occur, and you may inflict whatever force is necessary to stem that. Mm-hmm. That's what you went by as a law enforcement officer.
Right.
But standing behind you when you made the reasonable grounds to believe were people that said, well, that sounds reasonable. Now, the DA, who wields unbelievable power, he could indict an ant for wanting to go down a hole, okay? And find reason that a law that he couldn't go down that hole. I'm telling you, that's what I saw. That's what I know. And people, you investigate things. People told me they're investigative people. They investigate things, and it goes to a district attorney. They never heard anything about it. And they had a case they worked on for months and months. So anyway, reasonable grounds to believe. And who are the people that determine reasonable grounds to believe? 23 people in a grand jury that are, or the DA that, well, that isn't reasonable. Okay, so it's a flaw in our, which wasn't a flaw too much before, because reasonable grounds was pretty much, you could arrive at a conclusion. Now, what are they drawing their conclusion on as far as reasonable grounds to believe? And that's what I think the problem is. People are not aware, and they're going, somebody writes something on the internet, it happened to me. Somebody writes something on the internet, and, oh, that's got to be true. It's, what do you do? Where do you get your information from? Is WikiLeaks, is that the true thing? Is the dictionary that we're taking out of the internet, is that the real meaning of what's going on with that? I'm just confused, because
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I really don't know. And the Bible, why does that man write the Bible over and over and over again? Well, as he goes through life, each one of the parables in that Bible take on a different meaning. As you go through life and the experiences you have, the Mount Everest one day, the Death Valley the next, and the back up the Mount Everest. All those things are different now because there's people that really don't learn anything. I mean, the thing on the street, the guy on the street, Washington D.C. That's near. That's right up by Spokane. Oh, I mean, just geography, anything. You know, there's a lot of people that aren't knowledgeable in some of the basics that were always basic. You know, that's my idea, and that's my take on it. I just feel sorry for the up and coming generation. Now, don't get me wrong; they are very knowledgeable. And what's going on in our country now? The man that's the president's salesman of the year in 2023 is now laid off in 2024 because he's 51 and he collects a good salary, and he can be replaced by the 28-year-old that makes 1/3 of what he makes. So see ya. And that's it. And it's all about this, the bottom line. Boeing, another thing with Boeing, all the things. Boeing, premier aircraft manufacturer, was taken over, and the bottom line was the dollar. Okay, not quality, and the dollar. And I think that's what happened to all those poor people that lost their loved ones and stuff, and the things that are going on now. You listen to the whistleblowers a little bit; they kind of know. Yeah. But all this stuff is all part of this thing where people are believing the wrong things. And where do you get that from? Well, you try to get it from faith in something. You know, a lot of people don't have faith. You know? Yeah.
Very, very good. That's right. So kind of in line with what we're talking about, and I've asked you this before, but Barry, what does freedom mean to you?
Being able to express yourself and being able to agree to disagree. If you can agree to disagree, I have a good friend who is a Democrat. I'm more or less a conservative. I'm whatever I want to be, but I'm more conservative than liberal, and he educated people, teacher, union representative, all kinds of stuff. You know, union representatives spend a lot of time taking care of people that shouldn't be anywhere. But they got to take care of their people. So they are good people with great thoughts and stuff. But I disagree with them, and you got to be able to agree to disagree, and meet somewhere in the middle. And we're not doing that anymore. That's not. It's people want to hurt people, kill people because they disagree with what they believe. I mean, that's where I see the problem.
And the American flag, what does that mean and represent to you?
It represents some of the blood and sacrifice that my father, my brother, my nephew, my friends, people that sacrificed. The sacrifice is in the service. It isn't so much being heroes or all this stuff. You just serve. And I think we should have everybody serve in some capacity, not necessarily military. You could serve in Habitat for Humanity. You could, and just so you have to go out and do it and sacrifice and give service to other people other than yourself. And there's a big lesson to be learned there in that. And if we can get out and have a draft of people serving, like the Swiss, everybody serves. Around the world, people have to serve, and they have a different take. When you have to serve and you have to poop in a bucket and you're not, whatever it is, or a hole in the ground, whenever you have to live like you don't want to live, and you learn from that. You learn from helping other people, and you do it with nothing in return. You don't want anything in return, and people saying thank you for your service now is something that and I tell them, it's my honor to have served people like you, okay? And that puts it right back on them, and that's where it belongs. You know? And I was just there. I did the best job I could with what I had, and I deemed the Vietnam service severe on-job training. I mean, there I am with 40 guys. Hey, Sarge, I want to go home. Don't you worry about a thing. Got this thing covered. You're scared of that. So you did the best you could with what you had. And we all try to do that, I hope. That's the faith you try to have in the up-and-coming generations.
I just want to summarize your Vietnam experience. So I'm still not 100% clear of what you did. You were in the infantry, but you weren't a frontline soldier, right?
No, I was frontline.
We
were the tip of the spear.
Okay, how did I get that then? So when we first started talking, okay, maybe I'm thinking about the other interview, but so you were right there. I mean,
I was a point man.
Yeah, right.
You can't get any more tip of the spear than when you're on point, walking point in front of the company. 4 platoons are behind you, and you better find whatever's in front of you. And if you don't, somebody's going to get hurt, right? With tripwires and ambushes and all that stuff. And you talk about hypervigilance, and if you're not hypervigilant, you're going to miss something, okay? And that was the biggest fear of any guy walking point. When you walk point, I walked point, I was a machine gunner, I was a rifleman. We did team leader, squad leader, all these things. And be a leader, how do you be a leader at 20 years old with no leadership training or anything? I worked in a pizza shop, and I was in charge of some ladies that were young ladies, and every month they had an event that you had to handle, and that helped me. I swear to God, I'm trying to figure out where did I get that I had to take care of the guys and make sure you take care of your men. You take care of your men take care of you, and you do the best you can, okay? So you could hear an ant fart when you were walking point, okay? You could smell it. You're up there with a dog and a handler and you and the lieutenants behind you with the RTO. I mean, that was, and I felt in hindsight, it was an honor. At the time, it was like, oh God, I hope, because you're the front guy, you're going to get it. I mean, we lost point men, you're going to get it. You walk into the ambush, and you tried not to do that by kind of guiding the lieutenant, say, maybe we shouldn't go on this channel, maybe we should go over here or something, And it was taking the machete and hacking through the jungle and stuff.
Well, did you mention something about security, though, at the beginning of the interview?
Yeah, when you're pulling security every night.
Yeah.
Every night, you're pulling guard duty.
But you were out there with the troops?
In the bush, yeah.
Yeah. And
even as a sergeant, when I pulled a guard because I didn't have to, but it meant less time on guard duty and more sleep for the guys. When you chipped in and took some guard duty.
And your interaction with the helicopters, were they Huey helicopters?
Hueys. My buddy, that was my neighbor, he had 4 distinguished flying crosses. The man was my hero.
So you went on combat assaults?
Combat assaults. I had, I forget how many. They just awarded us combat air assault badges because they didn't have them then. So when I went back for the 100th anniversary of the 1st Cavalry Division, the division commander awarded all the guys from Vietnam that you had to tell them how many assaults you had and stuff.
Right.
Awarded us the Air Combat Assault Badge that came out after we were out of the service, after we were there. We were the ones that started. We were the forefront of that. They now have this badge, and they gave it to us honorably. They couldn't put it in our DD-214 because that's done, but they gave us a badge and said, "This is for you to wear because you guys earned this." They gave us air medals, 25 combat air assaults, and when you flew, you got an air medal. 25 air combat emissions, you got an air medal. So we had clusters on our air medals for how many we had. I forget how many exactly I had, 50 something.
So
60.
we're talking the Huey helicopters, the UH-1s. You were on them.
Yes.
Okay, so you think you did a couple, 100?
60. Let's say
Wow,
60,
that's,
70.
That's a lot.
Oh yeah, wherever we went.
Yeah.
So one time, we're going up to Camp Evans. We're flying in C-130s. They land, and we get on deuce and a halves, trucks. What are we doing on deuce? We're air cavalry. We fly everywhere. We do not go on deuce and a halves. You know what happened? That was right after they destroyed every helicopter in the 1st Cavalry arsenal. It's in that book. He talks about when he was, towards the end. He said they've destroyed all our helicopters. The sappers came in and destroyed. They knew and they destroyed all the helicopters. It was just burnt metal, and there was nothing left of them. They burned. They destroyed all of them. And the thing that was flying cover for the deuce and a halves when we went up to Camp Evans were the Cobras.
Yeah.
They had just come out, but the Huey, they knew. The Viet Cong knew what the steed and what our steed was. That was our horse. Our cavalry, that's the new horse. You didn't have to feed it hay, just fuel.
Wow, okay. Just my fascination, obviously, with the Vietnam film and the helicopters, and you're a part of that film. Proud of you, that you are. I just can imagine, the mode of transportation, getting ready for a pickup. Was that always like an adrenaline rush, getting picked up and knowing you're going to go and get inserted somewhere?
It's just like the fellas today that are the National Guard guys. They come out of being a postman, become an IUD diffuser in Iraq or Afghanistan or where. They're diffusing bombs and stuff. They're finding them. And then they expect this man to go back and be a postman again. There's a rush, a feeling of importance and stuff that came with that where you go back and now you're going to be the postman again. Not that there's anything wrong with being a postman, but once you've done that and you get the praise and everything from there, and now you've been through war and you went through this. Not that it was special or heroes and stuff. The real heroes were the guys that didn't make it.
Right.
It's you get the medals for being there. You were there for being there. That's why generals go and fly over and go out to forward areas. They don't belong there. The generals don't belong there. But there's another medal on their chest that they got to add to the thing. And this comes from people who know that we were just there. We were doing the job that was presented to us. And when I say the tip of the spear, you can't get any more tip of the spear than being the point man, right, going through the jungle to find the enemy. Now, and the Ken Burns series, like I said, the enemy. We were in the middle of a civil war. We were the redcoats. We were the redcoats of the Vietnam Civil War. I don't know how else to put it. If you can assimilate that to the American Revolution and the Vietnam Revolution and all the things that happened, we had guys go back. Colonel Moore, Hal Moore, went back and met General Gap after the war, and they shook hands and commemorated the fellas that died when they were doing I Drang Valley and LZ X-ray, and it was an honor to be associated with that. And the biggest honor I ever had when I went back to Normandy. Okay, I took a river cruise from Paris to Calais, took a bus to Normandy, and I'm up there at Point Hoc, up on the point. I'm standing there, and I took your tape from the German machine gunner on the bluff. And I listened to all that, and I go, oh my God. So I went there, I'm up on Point Hoc, and at 3 o'clock they have a memorial service for the 14,000 graves up there at Point Hoc. And play taps and Star Spangled Banner. I never knew it was American soil donated by the French. And the French school children take care of the grave sites. And my respect for the French is huge compared to what it was, because I was told they were frogs and they push out away in the lines at the Chamonix, at the ski lodges and stuff. But my respect for them changed when I knew that they were right there with us, and who came to our rescue in the Revolutionary War, right? So, hey, it changed, just knowing a little more history and being there, and I'm up there, and they said any veteran from any war, and I had my cavalry hat on, and 3 of us stepped forward, and they honored us and gave us a rose to place on any grave in the 14,000 up there on Point Hoc in Normandy. I was so honored, I can't tell you. I have chills just thinking about being honored with those men up there. For them to do that for us, that's the biggest honor I ever had in my life, right there with that. And the night before, a British fellow came on and talked about the harbor they made. They called them mulberries, and he talked about that and how it was Churchill's idea and all this. And then he talked about Point Hoc, and he said, you know, I had to try to visualize of the 14,000 people out there. So he took one lieutenant who was a bombardier or something, flying over Point Hoc and got blown out of the sky. And they found his body in the bushes, and he did the whole thing where it was high school, this and that, Blankenship, I think it was. And they gave us a black rose, and 3 of us, and that's where I went, over to that fellow's grave, and I put it down for him. And that's just one of 14,000, and all the people, all the guys that gave everything, you know. So that was the biggest honor I had in the military. From the military, just be there with my cav hat and be honored up there at that cemetery on the top of Point Hoc. And the monument they have in the surf out there is a stainless steel, just a nondescript monument for all the guys that came on that beach in Omaha and stuff. It's just knowing history. And my dad flew a glider, supposedly, into the fields up there with the airborne during World War II. Wow. So, well, that's as far as I know. I hope it's poignant, and not even poignant that it's true. We can't find any World War II records, but I remember seeing pictures my dad showed me of when he was in war, and the gliders and stuff, and of course they got destroyed when I didn't pick up the ball and take all the stuff out of the house, and they came and threw everything out.
So we need to wrap this up. I've got another interview here pretty soon, but do you remember what I ask at the end of my interviews?
Yeah, wait, let me.
Well, take your time. I'm going to ask you for another salute, but just tell me when you're comfortable. I'm going to turn the camera a little bit, and I just want you to look into the camera. Barry, if you want to say something, that's great. If not, just go ahead and give a salute.
To all the guys, please talk about your experiences. I had funerals I went to with the Honor Guard with the American Legion, and families. There were 3 people there for the funeral. They never knew that he was bailed out over Berlin and was a POW for many years, for a few years after, a year or 2 after. They never knew it. He never talked about it. And the biggest one was Flags of Our Fathers, when he was in the funeral home. One of the guys that raised the flag on Iwo Jima, he never talked about it, and his son wanted to find out why. And some guys never talk about it. They just feel that it's not. And even in my own family, they won't talk about it, and they feel that they were just doing what they were supposed to do. And please talk about it with your family and your friends as much as you can, and it gets easier and easier as it goes along, and it's therapy for you. So, brothers, God bless you, and Gary Owen.
Okay, stay there. I'm gonna take a picture of us right there. Okay.
Okay.
So just kind of stay right where you're at. Don't move. So I'm gonna come in here and sit next to you.
Sure.
On camera, brother. I wanted to do this since the last interview. I'm gonna shake your hand on camera. Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you've done. You've enhanced my life. You've enriched my life, and you're one of my heroes. I know you're not gonna say you're a hero, but you're one of my heroes, and I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too for getting the stories out. Like I always said, we need somebody to record the stories, even if the lies, stories, and embellishments. But even though, at least they're in history and people know about them.
Yes.
And they thank you. God bless you.
I salute you and I thank you too. So I'm going to take a picture of us now. So
Okay.
That was a video clip, but I'm going to take an actual photo. So I'm going to grab that and then we'll be done. So
Okay.
let's just kind of look over here. I'm gonna say goodbye to you, brother.
Goodbye. Bye, brother.
One more hug.
One more hug.
God bless you.
God bless you too.
Okay, man.
We'll see you.
Okay.
Safe home.
Stay in touch.
Okay, I sure will.
Have a safe drive back.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bye, Larry.
Bye-bye. Hard to watch him go. Hard to watch him go, folks. Hard to watch him go. Just did my interview with Barry Plesser, Sergeant, and Sergeant Lawrence Bromer. My 2 interviews a day, watching these guys take off here. It's hard. The hardest part of my work. Say goodbye. There they go. There he goes. God bless him. God bless you, Barry. Wow.